Wastelanders! Our challenger, racing for her freedom, Mouse. And now, our undefeated champion, Nitro! Last man standing wins. 3, 2, 1. Strike! Nitro's right on her tail! Ladies and gentlemen, they're in the tunnel! I think she's showing off. Whoa, what a move! Oh, I don't think she can take much more. Headed straight for each other! Nitro's hit for the first time ever! Oh, that's it! Coming in hot! Game over, Mouse! Not looking good for Mouse!
Hello. All right. I guess I'll start.
Yep.
Okay. Hello. Sorry. Hello and welcome to the Collaboratory, the show where Mike Morris improvises an animatic with a little help from our audience, and we learn about the craft of storyboarding along the way. This is an improv art stream that runs on audience suggestions. Mike, what kind of prompts are we looking for from the audience?
Well, just as a precursor, I think we're both feeling rather silly today. So I apologize if we are just weird. But we're looking for 3 things. We're looking for characters. Generally 2 is kind of what we're looking for, but, surprise us. And we're looking for a setting somewhere to put these characters and a conflict, some reason that they're having some sort of issue that can breed a story.
Awesome. Well, feel free to jump in with your suggestions. Whatever you might type may show up on screen.
Yeah.
Also, I totally forgot to introduce myself. I just realized.
You should introduce yourself.
I just realized. Hi, everyone. I'm Leslie Park. I'm a storyboard artist, and I've also worked with Mike on a couple of different projects. So, yeah. Yep. Mike, do you want to introduce yourself in case there's some new people?
No, I don't. We've got about 30 streams that everybody can watch now. But okay, sure. You talked me into it. My name is Mike Morris. I'm a professional board artist, and we've been doing the Collaboratory for a while now. So hopefully you guys have gotten some good stuff out of it, from the art of storyboarding to just the craft of it, to the maybe even the business side of it here and there. Leslie, we've actually worked together on a couple of occasions, several occasions. Recently, in fact, on a freelance board.
Yeah.
But tell me, and while we're waiting for the audience to give us some stuff to go off of, I never really asked you, when did you start in animation? Like, when did you get into this wacky game of cartoon making?
So I think my first major union job, or actually, wait. So my first non-union job was actually in 2019 with a Canadian studio where I was a background designer on a kid show called Tokaboka.
Okay.
And then my union job was actually with Housebroken, with you, Mike. Yeah.
Right.
So
okay.
that was like my first union job here, but yeah, prior to that was Canadian, and then prior to the Canadian studio was mainly like a lot of freelancing, but for a lot of like people trying to start up their own projects.
Right.
So they were more like individuals or like really, really small studios where they're kind of like, we don't really know where we're starting. So can you guys like just help us out? So yeah.
I mean, that's
was
kind of
happy
exciting
freelancing.
though. I feel like a lot of time, you know, you just have to get people together and make something happen. You
Yeah.
know, like, I see a lot of people. I mean, and it's awesome to work at studios. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like I see so many people like looking for that validation of you know, working for a studio. Like
Yeah.
almost that whole thing of just like, tell me I'm good, tell me I'm worth it. You know, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
When you know, I don't think that's as big of a worry to think about as just getting good and liking what you do.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, you know, what do you have left outside of your passion? You know, it's
Yeah.
awesome to be able to work on a project and you know, make that your living and make it the way that, you know, make it the way that you earn money to live. But I think in that some of the living gets lost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we get so focused and we're like, yes, I'm working at a studio. I achieved the goal. Yeah, awesome, go
Yeah.
me. And that's awesome. That's great. But I think a lot of the times we sort of like end up losing a bit of ourselves, like
Yeah.
when we're working on a project for somebody else. So when I see people getting together just because they freaking want to, um,
It's
and make
respectable.
something,
It's hard.
it's hard, but I think it's
Yeah.
really super rewarding. You know,
Yeah. Absolutely.
like especially when you have something to show for it at the end.
Oh, absolutely. Especially because it has so much hard work going into such a small project. Like something so small can really like take a lot of effort from a lot of people.
Mhm.
So just seeing the outcome is like really commendable sometimes, especially
Yeah.
if it's such a small group of people, you know?
Right. Right. Yeah, I just worked on a little bit of animation with a crew of 4 people that hopefully will be coming out before too much longer. But you know, working on the animation from boards to fully animated, like fully
Mhm.
traditionally animated, was a really rewarding experience. And I think everybody at some point in their career should, you know, do like an indie project just of their own volition.
Yeah,
You
no,
know?
I agree. It's yeah, because I think doing your own projects definitely teaches you the most. Because
Yeah.
you kind of like mess up on your own time, but you also learn a lot because you give time to kind of learn, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, Leslie, I'm interested to know, like, so
Mhm.
you've done a lot in, you know, a relatively short amount of time, right?
I
You know,
guess so.
Housebroken, you went from board artist to basically an assistant director, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
then from there, you went to director at
Yes.
Disney Television Animation,
Yes.
um, and now you're doing boards and, you know, some direction, I imagine, on different things.
Depending on the project, yeah.
So, I mean, how was that for you? Because, I mean, my experience was a lot more gradual than yours. Having worked in a system like, because I started on The Simpsons and they had their hierarchy kind of like set from a long
Yeah.
time ago, you know? So it was a much slower climb
Yeah.
for me, which kind of, I think for me was a good thing in some ways.
Yeah.
Um, but like, how was your experience doing some of that stuff? And do we have anything coming in from our audience?
Yeah. Not yet from the audience. I'm still waiting. But also, if there's a lot of noise in the background, I'm so sorry.
I
I don't
don't
know if
hear
you guys
anything.
could hear it. Okay, great, because this is like a lot of police sirens, fire sirens. I don't know what's going on outside.
Like all of Burbank is in an uproar.
I'm really close to like downtown, so I'm pretty sure that's why.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah. So just in case.
All I
Um,
can hear is a gardener out there, like weed whacking something. So hopefully the
yeah.
microphone's not picking that up.
Hopefully not. um, but yeah, so for me, I guess when I started doing more like union work, I think I was expecting something more gradual. Like definitely that is more the route that I thought would like benefit me a lot stronger. So I can kind of learn the ropes and then kind of be like, okay, I know where to improve here and then learn a little bit more. Because I think for me, I'm the type of person that I really enjoy learning from each different team and each different director because everyone does it so differently that it sets a great example of like kind of like, oh, this is like a really great way of like directing people or just kind of like giving notes out. Um, but I think in a way, because it kind of propelled me really fast, I definitely felt like, okay, this is definitely a sink or swim moment. Because I think when I went from board artist to assistant director, like I think in some way I was hoping at least the first day someone could be like, hey, this is what we're going to be expecting, and this is what you're going to be doing with each different person. But I think it just kind of came at me like on Friday. They'll be like, hey, we're going to bump you up starting Monday, and I was like, okay. Well, what do I have to do? And they'll just kind of be like, you'll figure it out. And I was like, what does that mean? so, so I think I definitely learned a lot really fast.
Yeah.
But
You're
I
like,
think
you
that's
have a
just
lot of faith in me, don't you? You're like,
because I think I was definitely like,
yes?
someone please tell me.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I
but
think, when you get into a situation like that, I mean, especially I think in the modern workplace, there's a lot of expectation that
yeah,
everyone just should know the process innately, and that's just not the case, right?
yeah,
So I definitely agree with you that the mentorship aspect of things is really, really important. And I think it kind of gets downplayed a lot. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
having I've had some really great mentors in my career, and um, from every single one of them, I learned something different. Either some way of working, some way of relating to my crew, or just some method by which you operate
Yeah,
in a consistent way, right? Because they say trust the process, right? Trust the process, because you're going to be working on this for a while. Stuff maybe that was once really super funny to you, maybe after the 50th time isn't so funny,
yeah.
but,
Oh
well,
no.
so this is my
Aw.
daughter, everybody. Penny's having a hard time and has
Hi.
come into the
Aw.
office today. So
Oh no.
and then this is my son Luke, everybody. He's also having a hard time. They're twins. But yeah. All right, go find mommy, everybody.
Oh, they're so cute.
You're all right.
Oh, we have story idea and a question that came in.
All right, sweet. What do we got?
Okay, let's start with the story idea. A teacher is trying to capture a bee in the middle of class. Okay.
Ooh, okay.
That's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, we're getting into crowds. A teacher is trying to capture a bee. Where's the setting?
I guess class? It says in the middle of class.
In the middle of class. But I mean, where's the classroom though? The classroom doesn't necessarily have to be in like a building.
It's true. Maybe it's a
or the building doesn't have to
outdoorsy.
be in a specific place.
What if it was like a Hogwarts like school? Didn't they have
Maybe.
that
Yeah. So
pottery class?
all right. I mean, I'm curious to see what our audience thinks. So we've got
Yeah.
teacher, we've got a teacher.
In the jungle.
We need a description. We need a description of the teacher, because I mean, we could do just like standard, professor type.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, let's see. We
So the
can have
person suggested that the class is in a jungle.
a jungle class. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's cool.
It's
Okay,
gonna be
so
interesting.
let's see. I think that maybe, we can start out. Let's start out with like a table surface.
Yeah.
I think we can start with something and do like a close up from the get-go. So let's put that on an overlay layer so we can put some stuff under it. And then, one kind of fun trick that you can do also is just a depth of field type thing, I'm sure that you've come across lots of depth of field things in your time.
I mean, like when they blur the background kind of
Yep,
thing?
exactly.
Oh, yeah. I love shots like that.
Yeah. It's kind of fun, right? So let's just do like a simple one. We're not going to get super into it, but I'm going to turn on my draw behind and my fill for the pen, and I'm just going to do some quick lines like this, and we're just going to pop in like a tone, and then I think one of the
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
then we can grab some of these brushes. I make a lot of custom brushes because I like custom brushes, but I think you can just put in a couple of little things. I'm gonna take off the draw behind and just make something just a little bit off of the established color here, and just have some like little splotches of something going on back here.
So we had the suggestion for the teacher come in. They said the
Yeah?
teacher's a chimp, please.
Teacher's a chimp. Okay.
Yeah. This should be fun.
Yeah, this sounds like it's shaping up. Pretty cool. All right, so let's put in we have kind of a blurry-ish background. I think that we could probably do a little bit more to refine it if we had time, but we don't. So let's move on. Let's go at the table. No, we don't want smart panel. We don't want to do that. Not quite yet. We're going to duplicate that, and then on a different layer here, I'm going to add switch my pen really fast back to this little texture brush. And let's draw, let's draw a fly.
Fat fly.
I mean, we're in the jungle. What do you want?
That's true. Juicy fly.
Yeah. And this is the kind of thing that I think, like layer motion was made for, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. Do you tend to use a lot of like layer motion on your projects?
I think depending on the project, I've used a lot of layer motion, but I think the last project I was on, not so much. Because I think it was more like let's break down the movements. Because I think the show that I was directing on was hand animated, so I think they wanted us to break apart like some of the motion. Yeah.
Because it was going to be animated in a specific way after the fact.
Yeah. So they're like, oh, can we make sure we have it down so that the timers can make sure like how long each pose is for and things like that.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So in this case, I think what we can do is we're just gonna grab a little bit of layer motion on this, and I'm going to move it up to here. One of the things I think that when we talk about layer motion that's really, really important is setting up your pivot point, right? So come over here to this side part in the tool properties, and there's a little button right here that says center pivot on selection, because what it's going to default to is the middle of your canvas, right? So if you set the default to the selection, then you've got something that's like right there, right? Instead of you're, going all the way around this huge pivot point, because we don't want that. So we're going to center on the pivot, and then I'm going to start him like way up here, right? I'm turning on our little running man up here, which means now it has, an animated layer motion. And so I can do this, and then I'm going to move it along here, and then he's going to come down like this. And this gets into a little bit of like animation type stuff. I mean, for me, that's all right, because that's kind of my background is in like animation itself. So, it's kind of something that you have to feel out a lot of the time, but I have faith in our audience that they will become awesome animators if they're not already awesome animators. So yeah, layer motion is really fun in that sense. So I think we can just have him come up here, turn him a little bit, and then come in for a landing. Right. And then you see like all of my little points. If I want to adjust the arc of everything, I can kind of like change it around a little bit. And then there's like tools and such that you can use to also do a little bit more. So he comes in and kind of lands like that.
Nice.
Now, another trick that you can do once you set your layer motion, you can actually break a little bit of this up. So if I wanted to, I could come here at the bottom of my arc and just cut a couple of things out. And then going back into the actual drawing, you can just, you know, mess around with some of the drawing elements. So like I've got this thing going on right here. I can, you know, adjust the front legs if I feel like it, which I do feel like it. So we're going to do it. So flying, and then it gives it just a little bit more life, I feel like. So flying, and then we get to the very top, and we're going to cut that a little bit, and then have him like kind of like, you know, get ready to land. And then once the layer motion is completed, you can cut, and then you know, have him do like a little landing.
Always so fun to watch you work, because I love how seeing like how efficient you are with everything.
Thank you. Bonk. You know, and I think that we can just like copy that panel here, and you know, the panels can get a little convoluted if you don't, you know, watch it. But just going to zoom in on that and extend this guy a little bit, and then come back to one of our original ones here. So he's landing, and then there's a little squash drawing, and then we can just pick him up a little bit. Whoops, we got to get the whole thing. And then adjust the legs.
Nice. Oh, so I'll ask another question.
Yeah.
Someone said, for storyboards, do you have to come up with your own story to present, or or they have one outlined and you just draw it up?
It depends on the show you're on, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, is this for personal projects or if this is for professional work? That would
I have a feeling it's probably professional work if they want to.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
plans, and then this fly can do like the fly thing, you know, that they do, where you kind of tip back and they cross their, you know,
their hands like they're washing
their front legs. Get that going on there.
Let's see if there's other questions that come through.
So it's kind of like not right, but maybe you can just do this instead. And get the idea, right? He's like the saddest violin. Like, when people sarcastically feel sorry for you. Violin. Oh, you poor baby. Yeah. I feel so sad for you, but I don't. You know. Yeah. That's a beautiful song, Leslie.
From SpongeBob with Mr. Krabs.
You know, I never did watch a lot of SpongeBob.
Really? Oh my gosh, they're so funny. I
I
don't know. I feel
think
like that
I
humor
think
just
it just
explains
probably
the
wasn't
whole
the right
generation.
time for me. You know, the right timing as far as like
That's true.
my
Yeah.
my main consumption of cartoons. And you know,
Yeah, I
I'm
think
gonna
SpongeBob just defined the whole generation of humor for a bunch of people.
the rumor was when Hillenburg pitched that show
Mhm.
that he had like a model, like he'd actually taken a pineapple and hollowed it out and made like SpongeBob's house.
Oh,
And so like
really?
brought in like a diorama model of it, and you know,
What?
sit down and started a pitch. And they're like, well, he lives in a pineapple under the sea, and they're like, sold, you know, like immediately.
I mean, that makes sense for Nickelodeon.
So they're like, that's the weirdest crap we've ever heard. Yes. We're on it.
I mean, based off the history of the shows that Nickelodeon had, I think it definitely fit.
Okay, well let's copy this panel right here, and we'll stick it here right at the end. So he'll have like a little, you know, up and down and then down again. And I think what we need in this particular situation is a giant fly swatter kind of coming in.
Gonna be that chimp.
Oh, yeah. You know what? That's even better. Hand. So, yeah, it's been a while since I've drawn a chimp, but I'm pretty sure that they have like kind of elongated
Yeah, they're like a
hands.
long palm.
Yeah, and like really like large like index like finger pads at the very end, you know? So kind of like big finger pads like right here.
Get your master hand drawings.
Ugh, no.
Okay, next question. In storyboard, what is better, black and white storyboards or colorful ones?
How much time do you have and how much are they paying you?
I don't
Or how much
know.
do I mean it's really up to you. I mean, in some cases, so for instance, like I worked on DuckTales for a while, and so we have four characters of very similar size, like Huey, Dewey, Louie, and Webby, right? So often, as an easy way to differentiate them on screen, we would just use different colors to color them in. You know, like instead of everyone being black and white, like you know, Huey had a slight, you know, reddish fill in his character, and you know, Louie had green, and Dewey had blue, and Webby had pink. You know, and so we would kind of just give that a really quick read by using the fill color. So I mean, and really just kind of comes back to what your director wants or what the production needs are and what you have time for. And it doesn't have to necessarily be like full color, you know, super detailed stuff. It just needs to be clear and resonant. All right,
Yeah.
so let's have this hand come down and whack like that. We'll do a bit of a squash drawing here. You know, and one of the things that I think really helps in boards is just knowing a little bit about like the principles of animation itself.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think that makes for stronger boards as far as like
Yeah.
when you're doing the motion of boards.
It's definitely important because it's animation. Like we're boarding for animation, so it should have those elements. Like, which is funny
Yeah.
because I'm still learning animation. I'm going backwards.
You know what? So many people do though.
They really?
And you're not the only one. Like I've worked with people before who had never animated anything before. They
It's not just
had
me.
only ever really done just layout or
Mm-hmm.
you know, stuff that's not like full blown animation. It was just kind of tangential in a lot of ways. So I mean, you're not alone in that. And everybody has their own journey that they're going through as far
That's
as
true.
like their progression. But I am of the opinion that being the most well-rounded artist that you can be as far as animation goes and being able to do a little bit of everything is really important. But like the more that I feel like that you know your craft, the better off you're going to be. Because I mean, really the goal for me is being able to make your own films, you know,
Yeah.
being able to make your own films and putting together like animatics like this, which, you know, kind of is the theme of this episode, by the way, is putting animatics together. Having a little bit of animation knowledge is really going to help with that idea of being able to put together something that feels like it belongs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to take some of these poses, and there's a little anticipation as he goes, and then we are going to switch poses for this guy, and we're going to bring him right down here, and then have the. Actually, we're going to have him start like right there. Because for some reason, I think flies can warp places.
They can go between time and space and just appear somewhere.
Yes. Yes, they can. Those little dirty, hairy things.
Every time I think I get one, they just appear somewhere entirely new. And I'm like, how? How did you get there so fast?
Exactly. And here's another thing you can do too is, you know, you can define your animation, right? You've got 2 keyframes that you're working with, 1 and 2. And then in the middle, you can go back and just add another one. And in this case, we're going to stretch this guy out a little bit. And have him follow the path a little bit. So when he goes out, he's whoosh like that, you know, like, whoa. Another thing that's really cool too is down here. I mean, we're getting a little granular right now, but the easing is really nice, and our ease and out parameters are really full. But this kind of gives us a big, quick exit, you know. So he pushes really, really hard and fast to get out of the way of that.
Do you ever feel like you can use Storyboard Pro to animate? Because I've seen some people go pretty far, like not Harmony level, but like I've seen some outputs. I'm like, wow, this is like pretty much animated, but it's all Storyboard Pro. Like, have you ever used Storyboard Pro for that, Mike?
Yes. You know what? Actually, Storyboard Pro is great to do motion graphics, of all things.
Okay.
I've run some pretty intense motion graphics stuff in Storyboard Pro by itself.
Nice.
I mean, because especially when you get into the 3D aspect of things, that's when you know you're really kind of getting into some higher level stuff. All right. Now we're gonna change shots. Let's do something with you know, annoyed Professor Chimp. Let's see. Let's feel this character out a little bit. I don't know. The tendency is to make him look like the Blender monkey, you know?
Oh.
So let's see. Let's just do a little bit of a quick monkey design and then change it from there, huh?
I always look up to people who can just like straight away draw everything, and usually I'm like, wait, I need to know what my stage design looks like. So I tend to like go back and like design everything.
That comes with time.
That's true.
And it honestly kind of also comes with not caring. It was funny. I recently did a Comic-Con Revolution out in Ontario, California, which is a great show, by the way, for any of you who are local. It comes around every March, and it's really, really fun. We do animation panels on it. Leslie couldn't come this year because she was busy. Somebody got married or something.
Yeah, my friends were having a wedding.
So what you're trying to say is your friends getting married in a once-in-a-lifetime event was more important than coming down and doing animation panels. Let's see how it is, Leslie. Let's see how you roll.
Oh, no. Great expressions already. What type of professor or teacher are you imagining for this chimp?
I don't know. I think we should leave it up to our audience. Like, what is he teaching?
Yeah, I kind of want to know too what your suggestions are. Oh, in the meantime, we had another question come in. Which daily practice would you recommend doing to improve your filmmaking skills? Good question.
The daily practice would be to make films.
Just doing it.
Just doing it. I think that's the best teacher out of everything. Like, you know, you can't make films by just talking about making films. You just got to make films. Like, even if it's short, even if it's like dumb, even if it's like, you know, something that you're not like putting a ton of effort into, like just the act of making films themselves, like I think is probably the best thing you can do. I come across stuff every once in a while that I, you know, really jive with online. And there was one, so I'm kind of a D&D nerd, as many people know on this show. And there's like some YouTube shorts that I came across of like, you know, wizards doing dumb stuff, you know, like one of them was like two wizards in a fight. And one of them says, I cast iron. And the guy's, what is up with that? And then an iron pan like hits him across the face. And he's like, whoa. And then the other one, like he collects himself, is like, I cast rubber bones. And the guy's like, all bones like turn to jelly, and he's just a puddle on the floor. And like all of that was done with like very minimal drawing. And it's totally in the realm of what Storyboard Pro can output like fairly easily, you know? So like even making little films like that, I think is kind of like what you should be doing. If you want to be a filmmaker, make films. If you want to be a designer, do your designs. If you want to be a board artist, make films, because board artists are filmmakers.
That is so true. Okay, we had another follow-up. So the person who previously asked that what is better, black and white storyboard to color, had followed up and said, thank you for taking my previous question. Sir, you have just mentioned animatics. For me, it's always been a fascinating topic. Could you please elaborate a little bit?
A fascinating topic, like elaborate on what exactly?
Yeah, I think they wrote animatics, but I don't know if there's a specific thing because it was spelled with a T. Spelled with a X at the end. Is that something specific, or is that just a typo?
Because animatics are kind of a big topic, you know. I feel like a lot of times when we do boards, that, you know, we get into editorial where we start putting things together, you know, all the drawings and boards, and you find out kind of what works and what doesn't, you know. And I think just that particular process of making, like starting in on the timing of it all and seeing like the first look of how the animation is going to go, you kind of see where the gaps are. Like, because doing boards and doing an animatic is kind of two different animals, right? You know, you have the classic like story room type stuff where you've got like the beats laid out and you've got this and that laid out. But then when you get it on the, you know, in the editor, then it kind of looks like a little stiff and stilted because there's not a lot of like in-betweens and stuff. So I think for animatics, you kind of have to fill out the storyboards just a bit more so that they can read in that motion.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the difference, because we can do beat boards and stuff like all day, but then when it's time to actually, look at the animatic part of it, I think you kind of have to fill that out a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it's also animatics these days is depending on what you're using it for, can also be used for timing for animators a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we do
Oh,
need to
often
fill out.
is.
Yeah. So it gets pretty detailed depending on the project, of course. But yeah. And I don't know, that kind of also reminds me of like, I know we went through this when we're at Bento, but I've also brought this up to like other teammates when you have like contact poses and when people forget to draw contact poses, sometimes the studios that animate it will just have items appear in the hand. So it'll be like, there's like a bottle or a can, and then they reach for it,
Yes.
and the next pose is already in their hand, and it just comes back with
Yeah.
the can just floating into the person's hand.
Yeah. So you get like all of a sudden everybody has telekinetic powers, and you're like, dang it.
Yeah. So yeah, we got to be pretty detailed sometimes. Like, remember, a hand grabs the item and then pulls it back.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a big deal, because so honestly, I think what it is like, on the business side of things, you have a studio that's trying to do, I don't want to say the minimum amount of effort, but they want to be as most efficient. They want the most efficient pipeline possible, right? And they also want to please the client. And so the client figures, you guys know what you're doing. You've done all the due diligence that you could. We're going to make it exactly how you give it to us, because then it's your problem if it's wrong, right? That's not our problem.
100%.
So it's incumbent upon a pre-production studio to make the most bulletproof thing that they possibly can. So when a studio comes back and says, well, it wasn't right, blah, 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 then you're just like, no, it was right. You just didn't do it right,
Yep.
And then you let the business people argue with one another and who's right and who's wrong. But I mean, it's incumbent upon the board team to have all of that stuff in there. Contact poses, start poses, hookups, all of these different things that will make your animation like carry through from the animatic into full production animation.
Yeah. It just kind of also reminds me, I forgot which episode it was, but in an old Dexter's Lab, I think they had a scene where they go to like a Chuck E. Cheese type of place. And then it says, I think the description for the boards, it said like the audience gets up and leaves or takes off. It says the audience gets up and takes off. But I think the studio misinterpreted it because all they saw was the board and the description underneath. So they just had the audience literally stand up and they fly up towards the stage and they just disappear into a tiny little dot. And then the whole time I remember watching as a kid and being so confused what just happened. And then years later when I watched it, they're like, oh, the translation for the Korean studio, like they literally thought they meant take off, as in like they shoot up into the ceiling or something. but apparently when they got it, they're like, this is so funny, we're just gonna keep it. And I was like, that makes so much sense.
Every once in a while there's a happy accident, right? So I actually had that a moment kind of like that when I was watching so in my house we're big fans of Bluey, right? And there was a scene where all of a sudden the dad comes into the scene, and he basically says, "Dad enters the room," and I'm pretty sure that was like a line in the script that was just like
they probably misread.
It was the action note and not the dialogue that happened, and he just read it and they're just like, oh, that's hilarious, we're gonna keep that in there. So I love
amazing.
Like dumb stuff like that. That's just really funny.
I think I also heard for another show, I forgot if it was Casa Grandes or if it was another Nickelodeon show, but someone told me that they got a SMP note really late about like, hey, it's a kid show, we don't want to like promote drinking too much soda, but they already came back in color, so they're like, well, we can't ask them to like recolor everything. So apparently they just changed the word from like like this soda to like this delicious healthy water, but every shot is just like this brown soda. And I remember thinking that was like the funniest thing ever. So yeah, make happy accidents. Make do what you can.
And I feel like comedy often is just so subjective.
Yeah, it is.
It's like one of those like beauty is in the eye of the beholder type things. Where somebody could watch something and be like, that's the funniest thing I've ever seen. And then other people could look at that same thing and be like, that's dumb.
That's true.
You know? Like, because I'm a big fan of like silly comedy, right? Silly, but intelligent. Like, I love good satire. I love
satire.
Things that are just like silly crap. Like, Monty Python things where they're just like, like there was one that was like the World Olympic Championship for hide and seek. And like these guys were playing hide and seek for like 15 years at a time. It
kind of reminds me of that film called Tag. It's like based on a true story of 4 guys that like never ended a game of tag, so they keep playing until their adulthood. And it was made into a movie with John Hamm. It was actually really funny. Like they'll be at like really intense like work meetings, or someone will be having a wedding and some guy will just pop in and be like, tag, you're it. And they literally just go off and start doing this intense game of tag. And I remember thinking like, wow, what a friendship.
Yeah, that's next level stuff. Okay, so we got the fly. Nice. And he's taking off. All right. Now let's have him turn over to his class.
Any other questions from the audience? Let's see. I guess while we wait, I had a question, Mike.
Yes, what's your question?
So, and I think you kind of mentioned or answered this a little bit before, but I want to expand on it. I wanted to ask, so what was your experience going from a board artist to like supervisor? And if you had any advice for your younger self, like knowing things you know now, like what would you say if you could speak to your younger self?
I would say get more organized.
Really? I feel like you're super organized already.
I don't know. I don't feel like I'm super organized a lot of the time. Because so I think the natural progression of it is, you start out as a storyboard revisionist, right? And you're making fixes and you're following the director's notes or drawovers or whatever. And then after a while you prove yourself and you become a board artist. And then you're composing shots, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then if, you do turn director, then you basically kind of become a revisionist again, only with like way more power to change stuff. And you're making notes and you're making sure that you basically have all of your, people working for you. I say fed, right? So you have all your people fed. I've got this note for this person, so they're not sitting on their hands all day, or playing a game on their phone waiting for work. So I think that is probably what I would say is the biggest thing, is just to time management and organization is kind of a paramount idea.
100%.
to have going forward, because like you don't want to be the bottleneck, and oftentimes like that's just the nature of it, that you are the bottleneck. Because like I've worked on shows where I wanted to have a certain thing just so and just right, and production was like, who cares, just get it done. And they're like, no, but it needs to be perfect, it needs to be this, that. And you can do that, but you just have to make sure that your time management is enough that you can do that. You know,
Yeah.
because if you're not managing your time well, then you kind of have to forfeit a lot of fun creative stuff because you
Yeah.
just don't have the time.
Yes.
Let's see. Let's put some foliage in here so we know we're in the jungle, right? Because if we don't have any kind of indication that we are in a jungle-ish environment, then it's not going to be very jungly, will it? And then let's put some trees or something like that in here. It doesn't need to be like super complicated, right? It can just be like put a little fountain right here. So when we were both working on Tuttle Twins, there was an episode in a jungle-ish classroom environment, and the teacher was a koala. So
I don't think I worked on that one, but that sounds fun.
I think it was before you got there.
Oh, okay, got it.
So there was a bunch of different students, and each of them had like a certain problem that they were having to overcome. You know, as related to education in its current form, kind of thing. But let's see. I think that we're gonna have two different students, and we're gonna just pan over to them as the class is revealed. Let's see. I'm thinking. Let's see. Give me two animals. I think I want one of them to be like a crazy-eyed lemur.
Anyone has suggestions? Throw it in. It's just gonna be a wall-eyed. Are you drawing that? There's another
Kind of
question.
looks more like an iguana, actually.
It's an iguana now. So a question came in, says, for my college animation project, I always write a script first, then do storyboarding. But every time I end up drawing extra scenes, is it bad practice? And then someone else suggested a lemur and a lizard.
Lemur and a lizard, all right, done.
One of the students is a whale. Okay, it's a couple suggestions coming in. A whale in a forest? It's kind of funny, actually.
Sure.
It's like they can't even fit. A whale. This little tiny mouth. That's great.
Let's do the lizard and the whale. I like the lizard and the whale because that seems like a really weird combination.
Wait, a llama called Paul? It's a great suggestion. Let's see. I'm gonna try and add to the answer for the college question, but feel free to jump in anytime, like while you draw your whale.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah.
I was fixated on the idea of a whale in the jungle.
Yeah. For my college animation project, I always write a script first, then do storyboarding. But every time I ended up drawing extra scenes. Is it bad practice?
No.
Yeah,
no, it's not because things evolve over time, you know? And that's all right. I mean, sometimes you just realize, oh, well, I didn't foresee this particular problem in the script, but now it's revealed itself and I need an extra shot, here and there. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever.
Absolutely. Especially like even when we're working professionally, like we'll get scripts that like definitely make sense on paper, but once you start drawing it out, you're like, wait, this character can't appear there. Or you're just gonna be like, wait, I have to like readjust a couple things to make sure this makes sense. So I think it's just the nature of it.
No, you're right. You're right. It's just the nature of it. So it's not bad practice. It's just filmmaking. Like you're going to change your mind. You're going to say, well, this is working. Is this playing out? you know, it's a refinement process. You go through it and you keep refining, you keep refining, you keep refining over time. And, you know, that's just how it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. Let's put whale right here, lizard right here. And we're just going to start like doing really derpy drawings, by the way, because we're running out of time and I was getting too precious with drawings. So we don't have a conflict though. Like what's the conflict is the fly.
Yeah.
So this guy is going to try and look like super refined while he's teaching. And that's why does the professorial point. You know, the very authoritative way that professors present themselves.
The person who just suggested a whale said, "My dream has come true. Thank you."
You're welcome. Thank you for the awesome suggestion. You know, and that's one of the things that I love about this show on the Collaboratory is just the creativity that our audience brings to it. Like, you know, I said earlier, I love wacky stuff. So it's very gratifying when people are like, I like wacky stuff too. Let's make some wacky stuff. Let's put a whale in the jungle. Yes.
Yeah, such a great suggestion. Iguana lizard just looking everywhere, but the professor is great.
You know, he's got the one hand behind him. At the table.
So it's just 2 students in his class. That's great.
Yeah, just 2 students. That's it. That's all he's got. You know, I think everybody else dropped out. He's like, you know, let's put something in here with some vines on it or whatever. You know, some sort of tree and maybe some other jungle crap. So I say jungle crap. Terrain. That's the right word. Jungle terrain. So we have a big block visually here on the right with the whale because the whale is gigantic. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we kind of had to counterbalance it a little bit on compositionally on the left by adding some background elements. So for the filmmakers that we talked about out there, make sure that when you're composing shots, it's visually balanced because that is helpful. You know, especially if you have, you know, some big stuff in a scene and you have, you know, big versus small and some of those other like competing elements. I think that maybe we should have our fly enter as our professor is, you know, pontificating about like his chosen topic. He's got his little glasses there, you know, and he's waxing philosophical.
This is super enjoyable for me too, just watching you work.
Thanks.
I don't know. I'm always impressed when you could just go straight into it and create it while doing a talk session. Because I'm one of those people where I get something, I'm like, I gotta turn everything off. My brain has to be super focused. Oh man.
Like I said, there's a certain freedom in like stopping caring.
I know.
Oh, you know, I never did finish that story. I never did finish the story. So I was at Comic-Con Revolution, and we were doing a thing called the Sketchtown Showdown, which is just we get a bunch of markers and audience suggestion. Again, you know, it's very similar to this, only in a live sense. And I I started drawing. You know, they wanted Harley Quinn balancing on the top of a skyscraper, and I was like, all right, cool, let's do it. You know, so I had, you know, her balance, and I borrowed a pencil because I didn't have any, just had markers, and then I just was doing marker drawings and went straight into the markers. And my friend Dave was like, man, how do you do that with the markers like that? And I was like, Dave, it's just a matter of not caring what happens. It's like, if you're so precious with it, you're gonna mess up. But if you don't care, if you're just a cold-hearted person when it comes to that art, like, you'll be better off. So there we go. Let's have, we're not gonna do the layer motion on this one, but it's gonna have the fly come in and land on his like professor point. And for those of you who love to use the onion skin, I'm gonna pop the onion skin on real quick. Oh, zoomed in quite a bit right there. So my computer decided it wanted to lag just slightly. And so that's what happened just then.
I think what I find interesting now too is that, like, while Toon Boom was definitely made for animation, like I'm seeing a lot of people who know live action kind of starting to dip their toes in this to use for live action. And it's really interesting to see, like, people kind of being like, oh wow, this is really good for live action. Just because it's made so nice.
It's good, like, it's pre-production, right? Because
yeah,
at the end of the day, you know, animation is just a different method of filmmaking.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just a different one. You know, so you can do boards. I mean, boards were a creation from animation specifically, you know, because it's a different process than just going on a set and like doing stuff on a set, you know. It's a lot more planning that has to go into it. But by the same token, like, it's still just another cool method of filmmaking that you can utilize and not have to, like, I don't want to say think too hard about it, but when you're on set, you'll kind of have more of a plan, right? Than you do just like, oh, well, let's play with this camera angle, or let's try this camera angle, and not really have a rhyme or reason. But it's a visual script.
Yeah. Any other questions coming through?
I think there's room here for a funnier drawing too. There are some people in this world that just know how to make a funny drawing.
Yeah, actually. There's a couple artists I follow, and every time I see this stuff, it just cracks me up. And I'm always like, I wish I could get to that level of just drawing hilarious, ugly faces. How often would you say you draw a really funny face yourself and you just start laughing at your own drawing?
Yeah, that's a good time. You know, and honestly, a lot of time, I think, you know, the crappier the drawing.
Yeah, like the funnier it is.
Yeah, there's a certain charm about like that whole South Park method of like, you know, make it crappier, make it look worse, you know.
Okay, another question came in. Hello, animation question. What exactly does a cleanup artist do? Good question.
What don't they do? They're prolific. No, you're making sure that final line is you know, working. So like when you're doing rough, you get a lot of different lines, right, moving everywhere, because you're scribbling your you're doing what I'm doing right now, just kind of like feeling it out and you know, doing the forms and everything like that. And in this sort of rough way. But then final line has to come through and make sense of it all. So you've got to make sure that each line is relating to the next one, relating to the next one that relates to the next one, right? And because there's no room for error at that point. So you have to they're really like they're the people that regulate what is actually going to be seen on screen and what makes the drawings flow between one another, right? I think a good final line cleanup artist, they are the best at making sure not only to not lose the original intent of the rough drawing, and they refine it and they make it work as a set and a whole, right? Because if you have this kind of drawing, right, you can be a little bit more forgiving of the thing you do like right after, right? So like it can be a little bit rough, but if you have a clean line, you know, something that has to be absolutely exact and then have to be exact over several frames, I think a good cleanup artist is really good at making sure that those are accurate.
Like
and that's
really
hard to do
eye.
Because it's a crazy attention to detail that I think a lot of people tend to not have a lot of the patience for. Mm-hmm. You know, because they want to do something that's like gratifying right away and get get something working. And not have to go through a lot of effort to do it. Unfortunately, cleanup is probably one of the most effort-intensive, labor-intensive parts. Having recently done some cleanup work, like, yeah, dude, it's tedious sometimes.
You usually put on like a movie or something when you do cleanup work?
Just music. I'm one of those people that, like, if there's something that's like visually happening in front of me, my eyes.
Oh, your attention, yeah.
And then like 30 minutes later, like, oh crap! I was watching that giant robot war. Oh yeah, I'm drawing too. Great, let's do this. And then you're watching it. And so unless it's something that I've seen like 100 times, and I kind of visualize it in my mind anyway.
Makes sense.
Then I, gosh, I'm so bad about that kind of stuff.
Love this drawing.
Like he just freaks out immediately. And let's have him just go absolutely nutso.
Yes, unhinged drawings.
He's just let's not be too scribbly with it. we gotta be scribbly in some ways, but let's put some multiples in there. Arms around and just everywhere.
Kind of miss watching cartoons that are really unhinged. Like I don't know.
Just
I'm like rewatching Courage the Cowardly Dog or just like Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, and I'm like, man,
yeah,
some crazy cartoons.
yeah, from the minds of mad geniuses.
Yeah. And I kind of feel like they really utilize cartoon really well just because things can get really crazy, or even like Kids Next Door, like with the wacky inventions and like the weapon design they would do. It was actually really clever. So I kind of miss seeing cartoons like that again, where it's just like really wacky or just like really over the top. It makes it so enjoyable.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you got some cartoon making to do, Leslie.
I know. Every show I've been on has
Is
been so grounded though.
well,
And
that's
that's
where
actually
making your own shows comes into play, right?
truly.
I think that there's something like very freeing about just doing something that you like doing.
Mhm.
I think a lot of the time people and having a job is important. Yes, having a job is definitely important. Being able to feed yourself and have a place to live and all of that stuff in life, I think is important for sure. However, I also think that given the opportunity and time, like to just do your own thing that's unrelated to your job and do like what you want to do just because you want to do it, that's very artistically satisfying.
Yeah, like feeds the soul.
It does.
Yeah. Okay. I think we had a follow-up question. Okay. Thank you. Follow-up. So, would the cleanup artist be considering a more senior role in a production, or would it be more of an entry-level job because they're actually animating a scene? Do you need to think differently when making a— Oh, wait, sorry, that's a different question. I would ask that after
um
you answer the first one.
it depends on the production. Largely cleanup is not senior positions, although certain cleanup artists will be, like the leads will be supervisory positions, but oftentimes cleanup is not regulated to be one of the top positions,
Would it be an
unless you're
entry-level position?
unless you're supervising like a main character on like a show. There there's there's only a couple of cleanup artists that I really know of by name. There's a fantastic couple of folks. I think there's a guy named Trevor Tamboline, who I think was a cleanup artist at one time. He's really good. Jun Fujimoto was the one that always worked with Eric Goldberg.
Ooh.
And then Brian Clift was another guy that I knew. It was a really great cleanup artist.
So cleanup jobs though, would they be considered entry level or would they still be, I guess, kind of like what is the regular— I don't even know what you would call a regular position title.
No, I think that the most entry level position in a
Yeah.
traditional animation pipeline is probably in betweener.
Interesting.
Okay, so let's give this guy like more of a crazy hunch, like wildness to him.
He's just
Some of
huffing
my
and puffing.
favorite animation drawings are Ratigan from The Great Mouse Detective.
Oh my gosh, I haven't seen that
Like
forever.
in that one sequence where they're fighting at the clock on Big Ben.
Oh man.
Some of those Ratigan drawings are just so good. Like when he's getting caught, like his cape is caught, and he starts becoming feral, like a feral sewer rat again. And like some of those drawings are just so good.
Oh man, unhinged drawings. Oh, next question. Do you need to think differently when making up camera shots with animation versus real life camera shots? That's an interesting question.
Uh, yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think that you have to understand the limitations of the medium you're using.
Yeah.
Because how to compose a shot for a 2D thing versus a 3D thing versus a live action thing, right? So live action has this unfortunate limitation of reality. So you can, if you want to get specific shots, you have to have specific equipment, right? So drones or dollies or cranes or just a tripod in some cases, right? So you're kind of in the face of reality until you get into visual effects, which basically is animation, right?
Mhm.
Then you can get into the Unreal Engine stuff or the all of the digital chicanery that we do in visual effects.
Yeah, I think I also want to add to that too. There was that Japanese director who created, sorry, his name is Satoshi Kon. He's the one that did Paprika. Um, and I think someone asked him once as well, because he makes such grounded anime, yet the context of it is so absurd and over the top that when someone asked him like, "Hey, would you ever consider going to live action?" His first answer, because he animates, his first answer was like, "No, because in animation you can cut frames. In live action you can't because it'll jump and feel weird." So a lot of the magic is lost when you do live action compared to animation, depending on what you're animating, of course. But I thought that was such an interesting answer because he's an animator. So then they'll kind of look into like how quick and fast his transitions are and how he can get a couple of frames in for like a 6 second moment that your eye will catch. But in live action, when you try to repeat something similar, it takes really long. So it kind of takes away from that magic. So that was just an interesting answer. I was like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Well, I probably said it before on this stream. I'm not sure, but rumor has it that Alfred Hitchcock always sort of was a little bit jealous of Walt Disney because if he had an actor that was being difficult, he could just crumple him up and throw him in the trash.
That's a great answer. Amazing.
Whereas, Hitchcock would kind of have to go through the whole, firing process or knowing Hitchcock, murder. No.
Amazing. Another question that came through. I was told that a better understanding of composition and camera angles will make your story more interesting visually. But how can I get better understanding of composition and camera angles?
Photography.
Yeah.
Get your camera out, put yourself in weird, awkward positions when you're shooting something. So I was in junior college for a while, and I went on a photo shoot on an art class. Because despite the fact that it was an art class, they're like, get a camera and bring it out. We're going to go shoot some scenes of nature, right? Mm-hmm. And there was this old guy that I would kind of tag along with here and there. This sort of old hippie guy. And he was like getting himself into like strange positions. Like he would, instead of standing up and shooting like most of the class was doing, this guy was like on the ground, like shooting upwards from the trunk of a tree, right? So like his point of view, he was changing his angle and point of view to become interesting, right? Because I mean, we all see through a certain horizon line, right? Because the horizon line is based off our visual of where our like visual standpoint is, and he changed his visual standpoint to be less than a foot off the ground, kind of thing. Like, so in that way, I think you can up your compositional game by doing photography and also reading books like Composing Pictures by Don Graham. Mm-hmm. And learning kind of about the artistry of doing that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Another question. Are there any cleanup artists that are world renowned?
Probably. I
don't know
just
any.
don't know them. I think somebody's looking to go in and clean up art. So, world renowned, that's hard to say because there's a lot of people that are kind of like the unsung heroes of animation.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like cleanup is one of those. So
I feel like that's a hard question.
Yeah, I really don't have much of an answer for that because I think it's not necessarily world renowned outside of a certain group subset of people.
Yeah.
Like you would kind of have to be in the know.
It seems like we got 10 minutes left. All right, Mike, do you want to run your animatic? Show what we got so far?
Not yet.
5 more minutes. Okay, we got 2 other questions then while you try to finish up. Puppet animation or traditional animation? Which one is the common practice?
Common practice? Probably puppet.
Yeah, I was going to say that too.
Because it tends to yield faster results and a lot of people just aren't willing to wait.
Mm-hmm.
It really depends on the project.
Yeah. Next question was, how important is it to build a visual library for storyboarding/animation and when the use of reference comes into the game? That's a pretty good question.
I'll let you answer that one, Leslie.
I don't animate, so let's see.
But building a visual library, though, I mean, I think we all do it in some way, shape, or form.
Let's see. How important is to build a visual library for, let's say, storyboarding and when the use of reference comes into the game?
You should be using reference, absolutely, especially if it's a topic you're unfamiliar with.
Yeah, I know the last project I was on when I was directing, because our show was so grounded, I think there was a lot of moments where I just kind of had to record myself as my own reference. And I did that a lot just to kind of understand like where's the weight shifting from, or like what's this movement like. And I think I worked on an episode that was like a pro wrestling one, so I had to like research how like luchadors fight. I think I was on the baseball one, so then we had to like research like how do baseball players like shift their weight when they're like hitting a ball or when they're pitching. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of moments where you use a lot of references. Definitely having like a good visual library for yourself is really helpful. But if it's on a subject, which realistically, any project you're going to be working on, there's going to be at least one thing, most likely a lot, but at least one that you're going to be like, I have no idea what this is. I have to go research what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people. Actually, I don't know if this is true for a lot of people, but I think some people tend to just kind of forego reference and they just kind of be like, well, I'll just make it up. But depending on what your project is, like having reference, even if it's something outrageous or like really over the top silly, it's still really helpful to have reference.
Well, I think it makes it more authentic, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think there's a certain authenticity that is required when you're doing something you're unfamiliar with, especially if you're unfamiliar with it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if you do something that you're not in the know about, that isn't like part of something that you do, like say you're doing a thing about like motocross or something like that, right? And you've never done motocross in your life before, it would be in your best interest to reference it.
I'm just kind of laughing at this whale just coming down into frame. How would he do that? It's amazing. Any other last minute questions? We got 5 minutes left.
Okay. So we don't need the rest of this particular drawing. I think we can add like a flipper coming up like this.
This is gossiping. Okay, another question. What makes puppet animation more lively? Any tips would be much appreciated.
What makes more lively?
Like puppet animation?
Puppet animation? I think if you do like a rough in traditional and then like use the puppet to follow that,
Mm-hmm.
I think that makes it usually more lively because you're not thinking about the puppet itself so much as you're thinking about the animation.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes the biggest difference. Okay,
Absolutely.
one more little thing, and then we'll pitch this. Okay.
Sounds good. And any other last minute questions coming through? Let's see. The lizards ends up getting it.
Yeah.
The lizard was just watching the teacher suffer this whole time. Hilarious.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right, here we go. Pitching the board. All right, so let's go to our camera view, the venerable camera view. All right. So coming through, we have a fly come in and land. Boop. And start rubbing his little forelegs together. As a hand comes, bam! And he flies away just in time. Grrr. Someday. And he turns to his students. One of them is obviously a whale. and an iguana. It's like, now, about temper. One must always keep their composure. Even in the face of adversity. And he gets super pissed. And then just immediately goes full chimpanzee, you know. Hey, Leslie, could you do some chimpanzee noises for me?
Oh man, really?
Monkey scream?
Wait, no.
So, monkey scream. You know, and he just goes completely bonkers. You know, I'll kill you. You know, he torments me every day, and this would be like the, you know, the crazy monologue voiceover, like that's in his head. Like, one day my revenge will be sweet, you know. And then he just is like, looking around, like being super crazy. Face me like a monkey, you know. And then, I think this guy's crazy. Want to go get a snack? And there we go.
Awesome. That
Save
was
and
so
pack.
good. Amazing. All righty. Cool. So as we close this out, Mike, thank you for joining us once again for Collaboratory. Do you have any projects or topics that you would like to draw our attention to?
Yeah, actually, you know, as I feel like the machine learning and generative AI comes into more focus, and especially with some of the practices that a few of the social media platforms are doing, I want to tell people about Glaze and Nightshade. So those are projects that you guys should look up. Just do an online search for Glaze and Nightshade. They will protect your artwork from being scraped by AIs and used without your permission. So something that you guys should research if you post a lot of artwork online and you don't want somebody just using it for whatever purpose they feel like. Especially now with Meta, especially refusing to let people opt out if their work has not been used by the AI yet. We've had a lot of issues coming forward. So, you know, something to think about.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you to everyone who joined us for Collaboratory. If Mike Morris could draw this awesome chimp professor story in 90 minutes, think about what you could draw in 3 weeks. You can download a 21-day trial of Storyboard Pro from our website at toonboom.com and find free video tutorials at learn.toonboom.com. And if you're looking for more interviews, be sure to visit blog.toonboom.com for articles about storyboarding, animation, and 2D games. Until next time, thanks everyone.
Thanks everyone. Thanks for coming.